Hello everyone, my name is Taxalber and welcome back to the Lovecraftian Video Game Retrospective and welcome to Mistfal. Mistfal is an interactive experience in which you take the role of a veteran who recently lost his wife. Now he's a single father, and to connect better with his son, both of them go to an abandoned national park named Mistfal for camping. Unfortunately, the son disappears and now it's your job to find your son. The game is, as I've already said, an interactive experience. The game is said to be inspired by the stories of H.P. Lovecraft and Stephen King, which is a little bit of an odd mix. While both of them are horror authors, they are not particularly similar in my opinion, but I found myself comparing this game rather to the stories of Arthur Machen, mainly because it takes place in the national park, so mainly in the wilderness, and the enemy in the game you face are ancient spirits. I wouldn't really say it's clearly based on a Machen story, but that's more the vibe the game gave me. The game's story is rather simplistic. You essentially just search for your son. There's actually a lot of backstory, but it's given to you in the form of diary entries. When you walk past a certain checkpoint, you get a couple of pages of your diary entries, which you can read. Unfortunately, this isn't really connected with what happens in the game. Essentially, you just get a small message, and then you can reach a couple of diary entries in a different menu. But it feels very disconnected from the rest of the game, and the game may as well just give you this as a backstory, or give you all the pages at the end of the game. It wouldn't really make much of a difference, and it's a little bit unfortunate that all of this is mainly just a wall of text that's just thrown in your face. As I've already mentioned, the game is an interactive experience. For the most part, you just walk from A and B. The game gives you a little bit of the illusion of exploration, but admittedly there's only one path, and every other path leads to either an invisible wall or a bottomless pit, both of which you should avoid. And the game does have some minor combat and stealth elements though. Both of them are pretty simple, though to use stealth you essentially just push a button, and if you're far enough away from an enemy they won't attack you. To fight you just take out a melee weapon, you swing at the enemies, they swing at you. Trading blows is pretty much the only way to fight, unless you manage to get the enemy to take the high ground and then walk away at their kneecaps, which in my opinion is the best way to fight in this game if you want to fight at all. For the most part I don't really recommend that. I do recommend to simply run past all the enemies if you can. The game has one interesting gameplay mechanic. You can switch from the real world to the spirit world, or rather two versions of the spirit world, and in the spirit world you can actually attack and kill spirits. Whereas in the world of the living they can only attack you, but you can't attack them, encouraging running or stealth. That's kind of nice, but it's not that well implemented because it's not quite flexible. You usually just go through an area by stealth, then you find a totem pole that allows you to switch to a spirit world, and then you can kill an enemy that's directly blocking your path. So the mechanic is kind of nice, but it could have been implemented a little bit better. As for the graphics, the game looks nice. It doesn't have the most realistic or modern graphics, but it's quite pleasant on the eye. It runs very well, which can't be said from all the similar games I've played. That should definitely be mentioned. And while it's nothing remarkable, it's also not ugly in any way. The sound design is alright. It's a little bit repetitive, and the background music, as little of which there is, isn't really remarkable, but at the same time it's not really bad. As for the Lovecraftian elements, I've already mentioned this feels more like an Arthur Machen story than a Lovecraft story, and for the most part even that is a little bit reaching here. For the most part it's more of a straight horror game, and it feels very much like personal horror. So if anything it feels a little bit more like Poe, but even comparing this to Edgar Allan Poe is a little bit of a stretch. Overall the game is about 3 or 4 hours long if you play it for the first time, but you're probably going to die a lot. If you play it for a second time the game is a lot shorter. That's mainly because if you know where to go you can just run through half the game, you can avoid a lot of enemies, and you can skip through many parts of the game which you probably would just run into if you play this for the first time. But then again, the game doesn't really have a whole lot of replay value anyway. Overall, the game is pretty mediocre. The graphics, the story, the gameplay, the controls, everything is pretty much middle of the road. It's not a terrible game, but I wouldn't really recommend it. If it sounds interesting to you right now, then maybe check it out, but if not, it's probably not worth your time. One thing I have to say that bugged me a little bit is that the game uses Lithos Pro, which is kind of a Fawkes ancient Greek font, even though it uses the Latin alphabet. And I'm not quite sure, but in my opinion, that font didn't fit the game at all. And it might seem to be a little bit of a nitpick, but it really bugged me throughout the entire game. But hey, that's just me. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time. Take care and goodbye.